What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a licensed clinical psychologist. She's an addiction specialist, empowerment coach with over 25 years of experience in the mental health field. She's also a certified hypnotherapist, brain spotting practitioner. I know, we'll get into that. Access consciousness facilitator, Neuro Emotional Technique practitioner, a podcaster, an author, and I think there's more to that, but we're going to stop right there. Please welcome Dr. Adriana Popescu.
Yeah.
Adriana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Deanna. Happy to be with you today.
Happy to have you here. And so we're just a fun little fact, you guys. She is Romanian like my husband. And so we always like when you greet someone in Romania, you always say ce faci. And then your answers would be?
Bine.
That's right. I love it. It's so fantastic. Well, Adriana, do you want me to call you Dr. Adriana?
No, please call me Adriana.
Adriana, you have so many tools in your toolkit, a lot of different modalities that you use. I want to start off with, I think everybody knows what a psychologist is, addiction specialist, empowerment coach. What is a brain spotting practitioner? That's something new for me.
Yeah. Well, so in working with addiction for over 25 years, you also end up becoming a specialist in trauma, because addiction and trauma, as most people know, really go hand in hand. They're very wedded together. A lot of people are drinking and using or doing other addictive behaviors because of their trauma.
Yeah.
So brain spotting is a modality that actually came out of EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, that's been around for 40, 50 years. I don't know. It's been a long time, which has really become well established as a trauma treatment. And brain spotting really just evolved from that.
Okay.
It was, Dr. David Grand was an EMDR therapist working in New York, and around 9/11, he was seeing a lot of, clients who had been impacted by 9/11, and just found that where EMDR is about eye movement, he found that actually when he had his clients fix their gaze in one spot, that actually seemed to be a little gentler than sometimes EMDR can be. And he had access to all this material with his clients that he had really gotten to before. So he just developed it from there. And now you have at least, 10, 12,000 practitioners all over the world.
And it's specifically just for people with trauma.
Well, it started as that, but of course now, with many of these modalities, including the energy psychology ones, you can use them to work with mental health issues. You can use them to work with limiting beliefs, but also to enhance performance. Dr. Grand works with a lot of performers, stage performers, maybe who have stage fright, or athletes.
Yeah.
I've worked with some Olympic athletes myself, helping them to basically be the best at what they can do. And these tools, because they're mind-body based, really helps us to shift the energy that's being held in the body that's not letting these people be successful or heal from their trauma or get over their limiting beliefs, whatever the issue is.
Sure. Wow. Now, what is an access consciousness facilitator?
Yeah, so I was a certified access consciousness facilitator for many years. These days, I'm just a bars facilitator, but access consciousness is this other really cool modality I've gotten into in the last 15 years, that's a combination of hands-on energy work and verbal clearing, facilitation. Okay. So the bars is these 32 different points on your head that when you lightly touch them, releases this electromagnetic charge that gets created by our brains constantly being on and thinking and worrying and stressing and all the things. So you lay down on a table, you relax, these points get touched, and you just feel afterwards really different. You feel calmer. They've looked at brain waves. They can see the brain waves slow down. The brain starts functioning more cohesively between the different parts. People report a reduction in depressive symptoms, anxiety. It's helped with sleep. So access has been cool just to have it. Because I used to be a body worker, so I'm used to working with energies.
Okay, like Reiki.
Yeah, exactly. I trained in Reiki years ago. So working with the body is hugely important, I think, for any psychological condition, whether we're talking addiction, trauma, depression, anxiety. It has physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components, and we have to address all of them. These energy modalities allow me to do that.
Wow. Yeah, you've got a lot in your tool belt. Now, neuro emotional. So now I've heard of NFT, but this is Neuro Emotional Technique.
Yes.
Now, what's the difference between the two?
Well, when you said NFT, the first thing I thought I was a cryptocurrency, and I don't think
No, or maybe I'm thinking of something different. But I've never heard of this one. I've heard of so many different modalities.
Yes, I know they all have acronyms too. Maybe EFT, tapping.
Yes, there we go.
Emotional freedom techniques is tapping on acupuncture points. NET, Neuro Emotional Techniques, is working with the same framework of traditional Chinese medicine and these meridians, these different pathways that run through our bodies, more like acupuncture. That's kind of like what acupuncture is based on, where there are other energy-based modalities that come more from the Indian or Ayurvedic tradition that are working with chakras, which are the circular centers of your body. But yes, NET was developed by a chiropractor named Scott Walker. Dr. Walker was wondering, why do my patients don't seem to hold their spinal adjustments when they're under emotional stress? So he started studying 5,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine. He brought in some homeopathic elements, and they use a lot of applied kinesiology, which is muscle testing to get information from the body about where the energy is imbalanced, what emotions are associated with that. And it allows us to release long-held emotions, energies around beliefs, whatever it is that is creating some kind of limitation in the person's life. And it's nice because you don't have to be able to cognitively identify it with your mind. Your body will give us the information.
Right. Oh, it'll respond. I think that is so amazing. Like, you have all these different things. I feel like when you're a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, it's very different when you'd kind of implement some of these other like natural types of techniques to help people heal. And I don't think that's very common.
It hasn't been. My fingers crossed. It is becoming more widespread. Usually the trauma movement, we've learned so much more about the physiology of trauma with the polyvagal theory that came out a while back. We have with research now, we can look at people's brains and see what's going on, like what a traumatized brain, what an addicted brain looks like. We can do research where we take something like NET or tapping, and we look at someone's brain before we do the treatment. And then maybe you do like 4 weeks or 8 sessions or whatever it is of the treatment. And then you look at the brain after that and you see significant changes. Wow. So we've really had a surge in support as evidence-based practices. And that's the key word that, your licensing boards and your insurance companies, everyone's looking for evidence-based practices. These are becoming that because there's all this body of research now, and the science is there to explain how this stuff works.
I think
it's not amazing. The weird woo stuff that it was considered to be when I got into it 25 years ago.
Yeah. I think that's great, because that would be a typical, and I'm going to go about the basis of the show, a label that people would put on a psychologist, So I think that it's awesome that is becoming more common in your line of work, because I think that it does take a little bit more of a natural technique or healing to help people release some of those traumas. I have trauma myself, and I've worked a lot. I've had to do a lot of work to, and I still get triggered sometimes, we're not perfect. And I'm also like a high performing person. So like, that's your specialty, right? Is working with people that are more high performers. What do you think the difference is with people that are high performers in how they deal with their trauma and releasing things versus someone who is not?
Well, I think they tend to push it down more, right? Because they have that like Superman, Superwoman kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta power through, and I gotta, get this. I can't let this stuff hold me back. And so I think you also tend to have sometimes perfectionist traits. Right. And so there's a lot of mental stuff going on in the mind of a high achiever. There's a lot of sometimes limiting beliefs that they're actually trying to counteract by being perfect and being on top of everything, because really inside, especially if they've had trauma, they might feel more powerless or not enough or out of control in some kind of way. So they overcompensate by trying to be super successful. Lots of type A people kind of fall into this category, myself included. And, the problem with that is the constant stress that you're under when you're so high achieving and you're constantly running on fumes. Like, your body will break down. Like, for me, that's partly what led to my becoming really ill with Lyme disease and chronic fatigue syndrome, many, many years ago in my 20s, because I was pushing so hard and burning the candle at both ends.
Well, I mean, geez, woman, you got all these How do you have time to do all this stuff? Oh my God, a lot. And I think there is a misconception, and so I can speak for myself, from my own experience, that once you start releasing some of these things, like some of these traumas and limiting beliefs, that does not mean that you're not going to still be a high-performing person.
Correct.
Right.
You're just going to have more ease with it.
Yeah, right. And it's not so forced. Is that, I don't know if that's the correct word. So, I mean, I look at things that I used to achieve in my previous life and how I've kind of worked on healing all these parts of me, and where I'm still like a type A person, but it's not like that feel that I need to be that way, which so to me, that means like, okay, I've grown to a new level. Now, with people you work with, how hard is it for them to get to that place?
It's so hard to say because everyone is so different, right? People come in with all different levels of motivation and all different levels of confidence in their ability to create change. So that's a big piece of it. It is, if you believe that it's possible, like at this stage of my life, with all the tools I have and all the work I've done, I know I don't live in fear, because any problem or issue that should come my way, even if unexpected, I have the tools to handle it. I have confidence in my ability to handle things. So I don't live in that anxiety, worried place. If somebody can build that kind of confidence, if we can really challenge and shift those limiting beliefs, I really feel like that's the core of it. In fact, I even call them core false beliefs, because those limiting beliefs aren't even true. This is a term I got from my good friend TJ Woodward, who wrote a wonderful book called Conscious Recovery. And I love that term, because we're saying the way these beliefs, you weren't born with them, you came to believe them, usually through negative early life experiences. And if you start to recognize the BS that they are, that frees you up to not have to then overcompensate for feeling not enough, or constantly be in this anxious state of worry about, oh God, what are people going to think of me? What if I fail? All the things that can drive high achievers crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think failure is like one thing that forces us to be almost at performing at that level, high achieving, because we're afraid of that failure. And I mean, up until recently, I was still struggling with some of that fear-based mindset, and it's like hard to break that pattern, because, you have to have, and this is true for anyone, you have to have faith and trust that you do, like you said, you have the skills to get through anything. Shit. Like, if you've made it this far, let me tell you, you're going to keep going. You'll be able to make it. You'll get there. You'll get there. What's good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. So I'm very much into my vitality, my health and wellness, fitness, all those things. So I love the telehealth concierge services. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but there's an online telehealth resource to help you with your health and wellness, sexual health, weight loss, peptides, what have you. And I really enjoyed the last therapy I did with them. This time I'm doing weight loss, you guys, because I've been a little bit slowing down here at this age, and I'm looking for something to boost that metabolism. I highly recommend Valhalla Vitality. I have a discount code for you, Deanna15, and I will have the link in the description below for you to go sign up. Check them out, get your appointment scheduled. You'll have a meeting with a great telehealth doctor, supervisor, consultant that will walk you through what it is that you're looking for to improve in your vitality. Again, this is Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast, and I'm here to endorse Valhalla Vitality. I love the title of your book. What if you're not as fucked up as you think you are? And I'm using the word. Sorry, guys. I just swore, but yeah.
I know. We went back and forth on whether we put the little asterisks in there. How many asterisks should we put in there? It was a whole thing with my publishers. And it's funny too, because I got some pushback from my fellow professionals, because it's actually written for the regular person.
Yeah.
It's not written for my fellow professionals. However, there's a lot of really good content in there that even healthcare professionals can learn from, because I look at this whole concept of limiting beliefs through all these different lenses of all the different modalities I've learned. I mean, I have a chapter in there on cognitive behavioral therapy and how CBT might work with your distorted thinking about yourself. And then I have a chapter or two on energy psychology, and I've got access in there too. And basically, I give exercises at the end of each chapter from that modality. Like, here's how you could do a thought record to challenge your thinking. Here's how you could do some EFT tapping, to clear a limiting belief, things like that.
I like that. What was the motivation behind? I love the title.
Yeah. Because I kept finding, the subtitle is how we come to believe lies about ourselves and what we can do to change them. So it kind of just, people were always bugging me. When are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And I knew it was part of my trajectory. And then the pandemic happened. And I think it was in that time that I was like, okay, now's the universe showed me that now was the time to write this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I did.
I like it. And it is clickbait, but I think that's what it probably draws a lot of people to it because it's like just raw. Like we all have that thought like, oh, we're just fucked up, right? We're messed up. We have this issue. We got this issue. Or like, there are a lot of people out there that are struggling with a lot of the same things.
Yes, very much so. It's that, and that was the common thread. Yeah. That's what, as I, these years and years and years of working with people, the common denominator I kept seeing is this fundamental, like, core belief, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, like some variation on the not enough concept, right? And that was the thread I kept seeing throughout. And I also see, having done a lot of spiritual work, like what BS that is, because our essence, our spirit is full and perfect and always has been. Just like you see in the eyes of a baby or a young child, they're just like full of love and light. Like that's our true essence, but we get disconnected from it through our traumas, through these limiting beliefs, through this insane world we live in. We lose touch with that. And my work has always been about like, that's the empowerment piece, like helping people reconnect with their essential wholeness and recognizing, hey, what if there's nothing wrong with me? Like nothing really wrong with me. Yeah, there might be areas of my life I want to grow and change some things, but to call myself fucked up is like just going to create more shame and make me feel horrible about myself in a way that will cripple and paralyze me.
Do you think that people that you've worked with, do we ever truly heal those negative parts of ourselves? Or is that something we always have to work on, like consciously work on?
I think we're always works in progress, myself included, but I do think a tremendous amount of healing can happen, especially when you start to tip the scale toward, wait a minute, like I'm starting to see the BS for what it is. Yeah. There's a positive momentum that can come from that. You see this with addicts in recovery too, right? They go from this really negative shame spiral kind of space, and then they start making more positive choices, and it creates this momentum like, okay, now I want to keep it. Now that I've quit drugs and alcohol, maybe I want to work on my health. I want to work on like healthier relationships. You see that over and over again. And I love being in that space with people where we're trying to tip the scale from what's wrong with you to what's right about you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I believe that you can, and we are all works of process. Like I'm not perfect, but I want to continue. And I think there's the difference between someone who might not be working on themselves versus someone who has started working on themselves is that you making some of those changes become easier and easier. And if you acknowledge that you always have ways that you can grow and become better, it becomes like second nature, almost like a habit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And if you use these, tools and you practice things like mindfulness, which, I got from years of meditation, and I don't really do formal meditation anymore because I've developed so much awareness in my internal process that the minute something feels wonky in my world, I'm in question about it. I'm asking questions. What is this? Where's it coming from? Is it even mine? Because I'm a highly sensitive, empathic person, and we tend to take on, we're aware of everybody else's stuff, and we don't always recognize, hey, is that even my stuff? I learned that from Access. Who does it belong to? Yeah. Whose stuff am I aware of right now? And then having tools to shift, manage, whatever that is, change that, take the power out of it, whatever I need to do with it, then it allows me to not go into these hugely emotionally reactive places. If you're not doing the work on yourself, all that material is in there repressed. It's going to come out in some form or another, usually in some unhealthy way, usually with a repeating of the patterns that you were exposed to early on.
Yeah, and for sure.
Usually are dysfunctional for most of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're an enigma. Like you're awesome. Like the fact that you meditate and you've studied all these modalities, like I think it's phenomenal. And more people that are helping, I think people like you that are helping others heal to that have that, like all these different things they can access is just awesome. I've had counselors, therapists, psychologists that I've worked with, and none of them really talked about any of these modalities when I was going through my healing phase. And I think it's just great. So you're like a gift. Someone works with you. So you guys, you hear this? She's like a gift. If you got shit you got to work on, you got to contact her. Let's talk about your podcast really quick since you're a fellow podcaster. What is the name of it and what can people get from it?
It's called Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. So I'm really interviewing kind of the OGs, if you will, of energy psychology, consciousness, spiritual work. Like I'm looking at mental health through this cross-cultural, everything from traditional healing, methods from around the world to these holistic therapies that we've come more recently into the West, and just looking at how that helps people in their process of healing. I like to try to, with some of the modalities we've talked about, I try to get, experts or even the creators whenever possible to come on the show and talk about, like, how did you develop this? And, what have you seen? And just educating the general public as well as my fellow professionals, like healers, like, hey, there's so many other tools out there. Let's get this info in the hands of more people. That's the stage I'm at in my career. It's why I do, podcasts like this, why I'm a guest, why I host a podcast, why I write books. I'm on the second book now too. It's because I want this information out there. People don't know. They think it's this weird woo-woo stuff. There's hundreds of research studies backing some of these things, and people just don't know.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think that we've seen a little bit more awareness around a lot of these different modalities, the spiritual side of things. And I think there's been a big shift in the people maybe starting to accept and look at the possibilities that this actually works. And this might be something to help them. And so I'm loving it. I'm here for it. Sign me up. I'm a believer. I'm here. So I love all these different things that you do. Are you like learning anything new?
So, I'm like the lifelong student, right? Internal family systems, IFS is huge right now in the field. It's very popular. And I really only have kind of a cursory, overview of it. I've had a little bit of mini workshops with Dick Schwartz. So I'm exploring IFS a little bit more. I'm really interested in TRE, trauma release exercises, which is a very somatic way of accessing and releasing trauma from the body. Always interested in the trauma healing modalities for sure. The psychedelic movement. I mean,
yes, I love it.
When I was a freshman in college, I wrote a paper on the therapeutic uses of LSD in psychotherapy. And I'm blown away that many years later, I won't say how many years later, here we are and in this incredible, emergence where there's a lot of promise and a lot of potential pitfalls. There's a lot of really positive things that can come from psychedelic assisted therapy, and there's some risks. And I want to be able to talk to people and educate them about that too.
I've had, I think, was it one or two? So I just released an episode with, well, not just, but his name is Paul Austin from Third Wave. And he talks about that. I just actually wrote a paper for him or an article for him for Brains. And I really enjoyed the conversation talking about how well it's helped people in terms of depression, getting off of big pharma, because big pharma actually, I personally believe, causes a lot more harm than good. But if you can access some of these natural ways of healing and being, like you said, assisted, I think that I've done acid, I've done shrooms, and I've always had a great positive experience. It was not assisted. It was nothing for therapy, but I just remember like the euphoric feeling afterwards and just like having such a great trip or whatever experience, whatever you want to call it. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well, this would actually, I could see where this would help, if you took it in small doses and to have someone kind of talk you through that experience and how it could help rewire some of those things that you got going on.
Well, there's macrodosing now and microdosing. I just came back from a conference where they talked about this. There's been more research on macrodosing. Okay. So actually giving a higher dose of ketamine or mushrooms or whatever it is you're using to potentially induce a spiritually transformative experience.
Oh, wow. Right?
Okay. And also, yes, to reset, neurotransmitters in the brain. And actually the most interesting new stuff, it seems to access the trauma, the repressed, locked-in trauma. They call it like a trauma capsule where the psychedelics give us access to that, which is why things like MDMA and even ketamine and psilocybin have been shown to be helpful, because it's, accessing that material, which in the proper setting can be incredibly therapeutic. But if you're out there on your own, you're at Burning Man, you're at a party, and you take these drugs and you have a bad trip because all your trauma now has come up. I see a lot of clients that show up with like bad experiences that then need help processing through and,
Yeah.
kind of recovering from that. So it's double-edged sword.
For sure. I've seen someone have a bad trip. That is no good. Not good at all. Okay. Well, Dr. Adriana, this is the part of the show where I like to ask you, where can people find you, connect with you, purchase your book and support you, or even if they're interested in working with you and learning more about the work that you do?
Lots of different venues. The book itself has a landing page, whatifyou'renot.com. I have a group healing practice called Firebird Healing. That's firebird-healing.com. I have a couple other therapists who work with me around issues related to trauma and addiction. And then I also have my own website, adrianapopescu.org. I'm on all the socials, except I got off Twitter, X. Got over that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but
No, but I'm on YouTube. We have a lot of videos on YouTube and Facebook, Insta, TikTok, all those
things. You guys, I'll put those links in the show notes. So if you connected with Dr. Adriana today and you want to learn more or interested in getting the book, go click the link, go follow her on social, and just reach out. I'm sure she'd love to have a conversation. This is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. In your vast experience of everything that you know, what would you like to leave with us today?
I honestly would like to leave people with the title of my book. What if, in fact, you are not as effed up as you think you are? What if it's just an idea, learning you picked up somewhere along the way, usually early in life as a child, and here you are all these years later still believing it? Maybe it's time for a software upgrade.
Yeah, for sure. Woo! Mic drop on that note. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your gifts, your tools, and all these things that you do in your belief system, which I think is just incredible. I think you're a great example for what therapy should look like moving forward and helping people kind of release some of those traumas and realizing that we can rewire, we can have a better idea of who we are, what we can accomplish in life, and doesn't have to be so bogged down by all these crazy beliefs in our head. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.